Welcome to the Real Advisor Podcast, TRAP, Trap. Please follow us and join in the conversation on Twitter @Advisor Podcast, where you can suggest ideas and themes you'd like the Trap team to discuss. Also remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave a 6 out of 5-star review on iTunes. Doing all this really helps us, which means we can do more to help you. Now let's head over to the studio for the latest pile of Trap.
Yes, indeed, dear Trappists. Welcome back to what many people are calling episode 56 of the Real Advisor Podcast, TRAP Trap. My name is Lick Lincoln, and joining me as ever in the digital studio of doom are the three other horsemen of the apocalypse. Andy Ultra Heart, Alan the Storyteller Smith, and Carl De La Voce, the voice widger. Now, gentlemen, we have a show packed full of absolutely nothing. So let's start unpacking it straight away with some more high-energy review reads read out by my very good friend, the Right Honourable Mr. Andrew Hart.
Thank you, Lick. The first one is from Stagman6, 6 out of 5, 5 stars. Absolutely love this podcast. Please keep them coming. I've been an advisor for 11 years and the content shared in this podcast has been invaluable. Real-life stories and experience together with banter and laughs. The next review, we've sort of leapfrogged this one because it was written publicly on LinkedIn. So if you want your review to be read out ahead of the queue, maybe this is the thing to do. It's from Tom Brooks. It's quite long. Here we go. Well, it's taken me 4 to 5 months to get there, but I can finally say that I've now listened to every 55 episodes of Trap, and I'm still in disbelief just how few advisors have even heard of it. It had been on my list to listen to for a while, but I was overwhelmed by how many episodes there were. So I suffered from inertia, but meeting with Andrew Walker, I'm assuming he's from DFA, gave me a kick up the backside to get started. He said, pick any episode and listen, you won't regret it. And he was right. So I started at episode 1 and listened to these gents, what feels like more regularly than my own family for the last few months. If you're an aspiring financial planner, put the first episode on and be ready to take lots of notes. It's a wealth of information, and the Trap team are doing a huge community service by sharing their experience and wisdom. Proper full-fight financial planning is definitely on the rise within our profession, and we would have gotten there eventually, but this podcast is the catalyst that will accelerate that change by at least a decade, in my opinion. Thanks, gents. Wow. Back to you, Nicholas. So, yeah.
Well, how lovely is that? And yeah, that is amazing. There are many of us, Tom, who think we should be doing community service, but instead we're doing a service to the community. So we'll take it any way we can get it. And thank you for that. And thank you, dear Trappists, for the reviews. We absolutely love them. They are so kind. They really give us a fillip, and it's just one more reason for us to keep on, knocking this stuff out, as they say at my local church. Okay, let's move on and put a timestamp on the episode with some topical tidbits. Yes, well, we're recording this just 9 days before the budget, so it's coming out 7 days before the budget. So that's kind of overhanging everything in the UK. Carl's been through his, what would you call it? By the vote budget. Is that kind, Carl? You're in, yeah. So you're the other side of it. So that's lurking over everything in the UK presently. But let's kick off with a storyteller. And yes, we've got some Trappists out in the Far East, I believe.
Yes, absolutely right. I had the pleasure of having a cup of tea with a lady by the name of Jackie McQuillan a few days ago. Jackie is a financial planner based in Singapore. She's Scottish by origin, as all the best people are, but she relocated out to the Far East.
Agreed.
Relocated out to the Far East a few years ago, and she's running or part of a real financial planning company based in Singapore. So I was introduced by her, so we just met up and just sort of swapped war stories, I guess, and listened to what life was like out in the Far East, in that part of the world. And look, by all accounts, it's I said it's a bit like the Wild West. Yeah, it's the Wild East, in fact. The advisors out there giving advice, and the products that are out there giving advice predominantly to the expat community. And obviously there's loads of expats living in places like Singapore and all over the Far East. It sounds horrendous. I mean, I said it sounds like the UK 10 years ago. And then the more she spoke, I thought, no, this is like the UK 30 years ago or something. Just the layering upon layering of fees and charges, no fee disclosure, all these kind of wrapper within a wrapper, huge upfront, 7, 8, 9, 10% of initial investments paid up front, ongoing fees and costs, just, eye-watering. And Jackie and a very small group, I think there's not much more than a dozen of them out there, this kind of internal group, they all, working for similar firms, real proper financial planning, doing real cash flow, trying to work out sensible investment propositions, sensible pricing structures, really making an impact and adding value to their clients, as opposed to being these kind of industrial asset gathering machines, which are just, ripping people off left, right, and center because there's a lack of option and alternative. And the one thing I do want to say on a lighter note is within their group, and they all listen to Trap. And actually, you post this, Nick, about 1 a.m., don't you, when it comes out, which turns out is 8 a.m. 8 a.m. in Singapore. She says, perfect. She says, as she's traveling into her office for work, it sort of lands in her inbox or in her sort of ears or podcast player, and on her way to work. And she said, it does make me laugh. I hope in all the right places. So it's we're making it a little bit of an impact and growing the community of real financial planners as far away as Singapore. And she says there is, and I want to give a shout out to this guy who I don't know, but there's a member of their group of Singapore Trappists by the name of Andy. And apparently he thinks he knows everything. And every now and again he goes off in one and they all burst into chorus. Nick, you know what's coming. Andy, the ultra crap.
Andy, the ultra crepidarian Andy. He knows about everything. Andy can't be told anything. His name is Andrew Hart. Andrew Hart.
So
Excellent.
Thank you to all the Trappists out there in Singapore. Keep on fighting the good fight. And we'll keep on doing our best to give you ideas and insights from the UK. Ultra.
Just one point on the Singapore market. It was Singapore is world class in lots of stuff: education, transport, crime. Loads of other important factors. Their financial advice profession is just all you hear is absolute horror stories about it. I mean, I thought they'd rewrite it with a blank sheet of paper and come up with something that could be world-class, even when it comes to regulated financial advice.
You're right, because everything else about the country is pretty positive, as you say.
It's like they've just adopted the worst practices of everywhere and sort of combined it together. Again, I don't know it well enough. It's all sort of new territory for me, but I do speak to quite a few Singapore advisors that are using the Voyant Global sort of
they
planning tool,
subscribe to your Hum Premium as well. It's going out there. They use your materials out there, and
so
I said the same thing to Jackie, and she just said it's just tied up by the banks and I think there are. I mean, I don't want to get into the weeds here on politics and stuff. There's about 4 super wealthy families that basically run Singapore, Chinese families. And they own all the banks, and there's just no way that they are going to be changed by government at this moment in time. There must be history and legacy. And actually, I reflected on that, and I thought, despite all our moans and groans about our regulator, the UK now, I would say, is about the best regulated retail financial services market in the world. I can't think of another one where it's...
I agree.
Life is a bit
it's
tough.
the most client-centric.
Most client-centric. And if you think back, the influence that banks have got in the UK is pretty significant. That the regulator and the various iterations of regulators have obviously fought off a huge lobbying power from these institutions that have got a lot to lose from them cleaning up their act. So I suppose it is credit to the FCA and their predecessors. We have got a better client-centric market nowadays, and listening to these stories, and it's not just Singapore. I mean, stories coming out of the Middle East and Dubai and Abu Dhabi, pretty horrific, really. But
anywhere with a sort of transient population, that's the challenge. In and out, high commissions. Yeah, we know, but yeah, there's still a lot more to do.
Yep.
This is true. Good points well made. And we are lucky that we have 2 of our Trappists, are 2 of the decent guys in the overseas expat market. That's Richard Holmes and, of course, Chris Emmett, close friends of the show. But they seem to be few and far between. Okay, we've managed to make the first topical tidbit last about 10 minutes. Wodge, over to you. Muted, Wodge.
Oh God.
Yeah, sorry, I fell asleep there. So
all right, now we're going to talk about Irish
had,
pensions now. Just wake us up.
Yeah, exactly. Just liven things up. So yeah, I mentioned before that the week before the budget, they announced that the standard fund threshold was going to be increased. Then the budget came along, and there was nothing about PRSAs, which are these lovely pension contracts here, which were designed to simplify pensions so that you could put whatever you wanted into them on a yearly basis. And then the finance bill comes out a week after the budget, and they have decided to change that particular, they're calling it a loophole. I don't think it was a loophole. But anyway, they said no longer can you pay in whatever you want. So big changes along the way. But they're not closing that door until the end of December. So as you can imagine,
Happy days.
Fill your boots. It's fill your boots time here. I would just urge caution, advisors advising clients, to employ spouses and kids and all that kind of stuff. That's just a recipe for disaster. It has to be bona fide. Just play by the rules, and that way everybody who should be allowed to do it can do it and will be left alone. Sorry, Nick. Yeah.
No, that's fine, fella. What is the limit going to be?
So we're going back to the old rules. So we used to have maximum funding calculations. So the max now that you can put in is based on your salary, your service, and your age, and all that kind of stuff. So
God, that's going back in time.
Yeah, and that's the point, right? So there are some simpler rules applying to PRSAs going forward, but the point is, look. I think the simplification was going well. I think allowing people to put in 2 million or 2.8 million, as it's going to be, into a PRSA in one fell swoop was always madness. There should, maybe limit it, and maybe you can just do it in the last few years or something like that. But I think we have regressed, and we just had a chat offline before we came on today, and I think Andy said, I know you guys are going to be talking about the budget, and there's a lot of people doing stuff in advance of your budget. What we need is a long-term pension strategy, so they're not changing the rules all the time, and people are rushing to get this done and doing this, and then doing stuff that they can't reverse out of, or they might have done it wrong or whatever. So that's what you'd hope for. That's what you wish for. Maybe it is coming, but it certainly seems like we've taken a massive step back. And sure, look. It's just open season now from now till Christmas. It's
a recurring theme in this country. It's a recurring theme in this country that you have a pensions commission that's not politically elected, that stands outside of the political world. So and this commission, whatever you want to call it, this quanga, would look after pension legislation. Because at the minute we're just driven by politicians with 4-year timetables. That's all. And of course, pensions are, by their very definition, this is lifetime. This is decades and decades. But they get dicked around with every few years by people who've got, understandably, short-term horizons. They just want to stay. They want power. That's what drives most of them. So they're limited to 4 years. And your country, Carl, our country, they come in different parties, dick around with it. There's no long-term vision. There's continual uncertainty. Now, in a way, that's good for us as advisors because there's always a need for our advice. But I don't want to be earning my money driven by that kind of environment.
No, and you know the other thing as well. Yeah. Couldn't agree with you more, Nick. And the other thing, it feels so. I'm always like, we're not in sales, we're in advice, but obviously we have to sell them. We're not going to be afraid of selling. But what you don't want to do is have the ick going around to people going, you must do this now, and there's a deadline coming, and because that feels salesy and it feels horrible and it feels
yucky.
Yeah, it does. And yet we don't do it, and we don't tell our clients between now and Christmas. Well, then they're going to come back and go, hold on a second, why didn't you tell me about this? So it's just not the way business should be done. I would have preferred, honestly, if they were going to make the change, I would have preferred if they didn't make any changes. But if they did, when they were making the changes, why didn't they just say it's with effective from tonight? There you go.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah, no, that's actually a good point you've raised there. Okay, so in the past week or so, the Chartered Institute of Securities and Investments, or Cece or Kissy, however you want to pronounce it, Cece, had its annual shindig in this time in the northwest at Lancashire Cricket Ground I think it's not quite in Salford. Manchester and Salford are two cities that bridge each other. And three of the Trap Pack went, Storyteller, Ultra, and myself. Guys, who put that point in? Ultra, do you want to lead off with your views, your thoughts?
Well, I think Alan put it in because Alan spoke, so he wants us to give him some glowing feedback publicly, but we'll get back onto that. It was in Lancashire Cricket Club, 2 days.
Old Trafford.
Great networking. Alan did speak. He did a whole talk on AI, and I thought it was actually superb. If He was joined by
Whoa,
the Saturn
what?
guys.
This needs to be
It was
recorded
great. It was superb.
Thank you.
A couple of points to mention. The venue was okay. People were quite confused where to go. They had 3 different streams. The only thing I would say is, again, they didn't really treat speakers that well. I mean, there was sort of offshoot rooms that had bad projectors, seats not being able to see the screens. The AV crews were not really on it. There wasn't water for the speakers. I don't know. They just maybe next year need to think that the speakers make everything. We want them to have everything to hand, be as comfortable as they can be. Thank God, Alan, I think, just about got his whole slide deck to the AV crew with about 5 minutes to spare because they couldn't work out how to access a WeTransfer link. Anyway, apart from that, it was superb. The networking was brilliant. We had a late night. There was awards. Amelia, the fifth Beatle, won an award. I think it was the Paul Etheridge Award, Future Leader. That was,
it was
a lot of fun and a couple of other things. So for me, it's always the networking, but it's always good when the content's brilliant as well. But yeah, so what did you think, Nick? You were there for about 14 minutes, I think, in the end. So how did you find it?
Yeah.
Most of that was in the bar.
Right. I think it was well organised, and I want to shout out to Sally Plant of the CISI, who kind of I think is the one that's running the things, and she helped me out the day as well. So thanks for that. I thought the content was very patchy. I've got to be honest. I think a lot of it is still not that great. I thought the keynote speakers by the 2 ladies were on the first day were very good. Samantha Russell was the later one. Obviously, she's been the 6th Beatle on track as well. She was excellent, as was the lady who spoke in the middle of the day. But apart from that, it was okay. It was okay, nothing more than that. And as you say, the first 2 things I went into, I couldn't read the slides and I couldn't really hear what they were saying. I just thought, okay, I'm not bothering. If you haven't bothered to pay respect to the speaker and your audience, I'm not going to strain at the back trying to read slides that I can't, So that is disappointing. There we go. Smithy, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd
As
echo
an attendee and speaker.
I'd echo what you guys have said thus far. Look, we don't want to criticise it as well as Andy knows more than any of us. It's really difficult putting on an event over 2 days. I don't think the venue was particularly good. Old Trafford Cricket Ground, the conference centre there, the rooms were pretty well spaced out. The room that I spoke in, called the members' room, was kind of miles away from everything else, and there was just a bit of logistical challenges in that I was sitting in watching a talk with Oliver Burke, which was really good, but he was plagued by tech issues. He lost about a third of his talk, I think. Obviously, we didn't get to see it, so I don't know what it was. And then I apologized to him and I said I have to, because it was just before Nick Murray was coming on, and looking at the agenda again, it was like, Oliver finishes at, I can't remember exactly, let's say 1:40 p.m. Nick Murray starts 1:40 p.m. So I thought, well, the time I get across there, I'm going to miss the legend that is Mr. Nick Murray. So I sort of bowed out, and Andy, you were with me, weren't you? Or were you? No, you weren't. So it was
and it was
Justin King. Shout out to Justin King, big Trappist. He's legendary. Love spending time with Justin. But then we got across, and I don't understand, because Nick Murray was billed for I think an hour, and I doubt if he was on as far as half an hour,
25 minutes.
Yeah, and it looked like it was pre-recorded.
25 minutes.
So look, we're nitpicking here somewhat. It was good. As always, these events, they are about, round the proverbial water cooler, or more like the bar.
Yeah,
good conversations.
The bar late at night.
Shout out also to Jackie, Amelia's mum. She was there. She's a load of fun. And, there's a good community of people that just sort of, don't take each other too seriously, love to swap ideas, share, whatever we're working on and what we're thinking about. So it was wonderful from that viewpoint. Yeah, I gave a talk. It was a bit nerve-wracking because minutes before it was due to start, they hadn't got my slides. But we managed to solve it in the nick of time. But it doesn't set you up brilliantly to speaking in front of however many of your peers.
No.
Minutes before, you're thinking, I haven't even got a presentation to share with you. So those are the, hopefully, as you say, they'll learn from this, and it'll be a slightly better event for next year. But
it's staggering someone of your class being in the smaller room round the back. I thought you'd be on the main stage, Alan, or is that?
Well, That's what I thought as well, but down to the organisers, eh?
I think they read the room well. I think let's put Smithy in the furthest room, hard to get to.
It
Miles
was
away,
packed.
small.
His room was
Standing
absolutely
room
packed.
only, Nick.
People spilling out
Okay.
the back. I sent him some wonderful pictures after that. He was very thankful for that. He posted them all over LinkedIn.
Obviously.
Anyway,
Moving on.
We got to move on. But just to say thank you to all the Trappists that came up to the three of us and just told us their stories about listening to the show, how much they enjoy it. We love it.
I'd like to say thanks for all the updates along the 2 days, especially the very late at night ones. They were brilliant, guys. Thanks, appreciate
No
it.
worries.
Glad you enjoyed them, Wodge. Glad you enjoyed them. Okay.
They were private.
Right. Now, there's a word here, Alan. I want you just to internalise this and just chew on it and enjoy it. Brief.
Yeah, I posted it. A brief. This is not a story. It is a story, but it's hopefully it's less. It's a 2-minute story. I just wanted to share this just quickly because it's no. It's this. Listen, this is serious. This is serious. This is hot off the press. I've just come off a call literally an hour ago with a prospective client. Now, this is a client that is literally in the proceeds of selling his business, and it's a significant business, and he will exit for a work out significant nine-figure sum, so north of £100 million. And we've been chatting to him for quite a while. And he just said, look, are you free for a quick call? He said, I got on the call with him now. He said, look, we're going ahead, all systems go, but just so you know, before I exit, all this news, this is a pre-budget story, all this news that's coming down, I'm not taking a risk. I was okay about paying 20%. Well, begrudgingly, he was going to pay 20% in capital gains tax. But this potential rise to 39 or whatever it is just got me thinking. I've spoken, and he's got one of the top firms of accountants that he works with. Spoken with them. I've now made a decision. I've decided, me and the family, we're relocating. We're going to, and I won't mention the place, but they're going overseas pre-sale of the business. And so even at 20%, there's tens of millions of pounds that HMRC are now definitely going to lose out on as a result of this one person's decision. And he was saying to me, he said, I'm in various founder entrepreneur networks and groups. We're all buzzing, WhatsApp groups, we're buzzing. And almost everyone, without exception, is either making plans or at least talking about it and investigating, depending on where they are on their business journey. And I was thinking, man, what a freaking, own goal, a PR disaster, whatever happens, even if there's no change, whether or not, but people have just said, look, I don't trust these people to make decisions that are going to be even remotely, not in my favor, but even neutral. And so I just wanted to share that as one real life example. And by the way, obviously I haven't mentioned his name, but he said, I'm happy for you to share that just to sort of spread the word around, because people, government needs to know that people are literally making material decisions, which is going to deny the Treasury and HMRC of much needed funds because of this ineptitude. Any thoughts on that?
I think we're all in broad agreement. There's the rumours they're going to get rid of entrepreneurial relief outright, aren't they? It's not just the stupidity. It's the message it sends out. It's just I don't get it. I just don't understand. I don't see how they the politicians can't see that you have to have an flourishing entrepreneurial sector in your economy, because all these massive GlaxoSmithKlines were once an idea. The Marks and Spencers, whatever big brand, Lloyd's Bank, that was once an idea. And it would have been a tiny acorn, and these acorns grow into trees. A lot of the acorns won't grow, but some of them will grow into the mighty trees. But if the acorns aren't being planted, you ain't going to have an economy in 30, 40 years. You're just not. And then what? Then how are you going to fund your little pet projects and your causes? Such as our NHS and everything else. That's it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we're leading on to that. Ultra, you've got a related topic.
Yeah, my point's following on. It's again budget related. AJ Bell, quite an interesting company, FTSE 250. I don't know the exact numbers, but keep it simple. Half of their platform is DIY clients and half is advised clients. So they've got good MI to see what's happening with the different client segments that they look after. And they're basically just saying there should be some form of pension tax lock, because all of this proposed changes or ending up being no changes is causing people to potentially do things which are financially dangerous, financial self-harm, etc. They said the government should limit the potential for people to financially self-harm, and this article came out, so it's related to it. And again, we don't know if people having a knee-jerk reaction with foresight have done the right thing, but in hindsight, we will know, if that makes sense. So it's just one of those tricky situations where we don't know whether or not to lead with clients pulling the trigger on a certain thing, because then again, in hindsight, it would have made sense or not. So it's a very challenging sort of dance that professional advisors are sort of contending with at the moment. So that's basically it. They're just saying we want a little bit more calm rather than the government creating people to have knee-jerk reactions to potentially cause harm to themselves financially. So that's it, really. Any points?
Nope, nothing to add to that.
No.
It's the underlying theme of this show, isn't it? It's lurking everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Della Voce.
Yes, the half-century chronicles, thanks be to Jesus Christ Almighty, are nearly over. So this was a project I decided that would be a great idea when I was 49, a mere 49. And I said,
You're not 53.
For the year I'm 50, For the year I'm 50, I'm going to do 50 little videos on life lessons that I've learned along the way. 2 things I wish I didn't commit to it, but I did commit, and I am about to finish. And that indeed is the penultimate lesson.
Well done.
So the 50th one is upcoming, but it's going on so long, I have probably forgotten about a number of the lessons along the way. And someone close to me did say to me this week, you need to go back and look at some of your own lessons there, please. So,
Whoa.
so it's all well and good saying it, but doing it sometimes can be the challenge. But anyway, I just wanted to put it out there because I'm kind of pleased it's nearly over. I'll be posting
Are
the
all
last
50
one
on your
next
LinkedIn
week.
feed, Carl?
Yeah, I started. It was going on too long, so I started posting 2 and 3 together.
Yeah, I noticed that. There was 4 or 5 in one go at one point.
Yeah, there was. Yeah. We did a few posts because the firm that do the marketing piece first were I think they were getting well peed off with it as well. And they went, "What about we put them all together?" And I went, "Okay, I hear you." So
It's probably cost you 50 grand to get it all edited in the end.
yeah, I'd say a lot more than that actually. But anyway, yeah. So, but the penultimate lesson was if you decide on something and commit to it, you have to have the discipline to finish. I have finished.
Yeah, well, that's
Well
true.
done.
That's true. That's true. Commit to something and do it. Okay, good stuff. Storyteller, John Plender.
Hang on. Did you move
FT.
around? I thought it was Wodge again.
I haven't
not
moved anything
prepared.
around. I'm reading off the digital screen, not a piece of paper. John Plender.
Okay.
Still John
I thought
Plender.
this is
Read it
brilliant.
once.
I thought this was brilliant. So this was an article in the Financial Times the other day. John Plender is a journalist, senior editor guy at the FT, and he does this big deep dive, quite a long article. And I was sort of browsing through that because it was really about this kind of story that we go on about all the time. This risk versus volatility story and the impact of bonds in portfolios. The article starts off about institutional and large kind of defined benefit pension funds and all the issue around volatility. And there's a couple of quotes within it, and which are just worth me reading out. And he says, the worst of it is that the notion of bonds as safe assets is pure myth. Elroy Dimson, Paul Marsh, and Mike Staunton in the latest UBS Global Investment Return Yearbook point out that between October 1946 and December 1974, UK government bonds lost 74% of their value. In fact, UK bond investors lost half their value during the inflationary period between 1774. And he's on to say, no, this is the statement that I thought was just incredible and kind of just enforces what we've been saying for years. He says, nothing could more devastatingly highlight the how mainstream economists, actuaries, and regulators have lost the risk and return plot. So, as we know, we've been talking about this, the regulator. The regulator. And I know that we individually talk about this. We get private messages from loads of different advisors. And I noticed, Nick, on your IFA forum, shout out for that group, which I browse through from time to time. There's a lot of people, a lot of advisors, good advisors, struggling with this as an issue because they say, I know, I agree with this makes sense, but my compliance department won't let me do it. And I just thought it was really good. That's a use. I'd be interested to see if the regulator ever sort of pays attention. But coming out of his team, Elroy, Dimson, Marsh, they're the well-known kind of economists, researchers, and they're saying in a much more eloquent way what we've been saying for years. So I thought it was interesting.
Yep. And that was actually something at Cece. The people would come up to me, and that was the recurring theme when I was chatting with people there, my peers, about how this whole risk thing is. I think the worm is turning. There's a real groundswell of opinion amongst the people that do this thing of ours, that the risk conversation, it has been totally badly framed for the last 30 years, and we've got to start talking about this more openly. Andy, was your finger raised?
Yeah, very briefly. I mean, the good news is a lot of these one fund solutions that we know very well and talk about, and a lot of our clients potentially are in them. On the risk scale, they're now 5s out of 7s. We know the whole risk scale is total BS, but at least finally they're realising that 100% global equity portfolio is not an 11 out of 10. You know, it's not a 10 out of 10. It's not far up there. It's way further down. So yeah, it is slowly turning. And some bond funds during the madness of 2022 turned into 6 out of 7. So it's just... It's
Vanguard
ridiculous,
fund,
but I think it is
Vanguard
slowly
reassessed their bond fund and went from super low risk to being the highest one of all. But that was after, the event,
to 6 out of 7s.
Yeah, but that was after. That was in
hindsight.
Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous.
Trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube. Ridiculous. Okay, another scam. This time it's not an Irish one, so we're going to bring it up with some more UK-based scams.
I know, it seems like these UK scams are few and far between these days. Hopefully the regulator has been doing their job. Okay, so this one, brace yourselves, was an art investment stroke fraud. A company called Smith & Partner. Sounds very fancy. So the article was about a 31-year-old gold trader. He was the person that got scammed. He was looking for 64.6% in the first 12 months. So clearly this gold trader is an investing illiterate. But anyway, he went ahead and surprise, it went belly up. I mean, it's not nice that people create these scams to obviously defraud people, but for me, fraud and scams fall into two different categories. There's a deception fraud, which someone is like rung up and told that their bank's closing down, they need to move money, and someone's been deceived into taking action, but they haven't gone into it with the intention to make money. The different type of fraud is called a greed fraud. You've gone into that fraud in the intention of making money. It's turned out that you've been defrauded, and then you've gone crying to someone. So this is a greed fraud. The worst part of this story, the guy, this 31-year-old gold trader, has tried to go after HSBC, his bank, to claim the money back after this investment, which is not an investment, speculation, blew up. It's madness. I mean, it's not sort of poor old banks, but my God, having to deal with these types of people, investing illiterates that just throw their money here, there and everywhere, and then going after the banks and them having to have a compliance department and a complaints department to deal with all this sort of stuff. Apparently, there's another company dealing with all the victims of this fraud. They've submitted 40 claims to 12 banks for £2.1 million. They're all going after the banks that facilitated them move around their own money. Anyway, these things
So what's the complaint against the bank? That the bank, the client, the person, the investor instructed the bank to move money to this account to get into this thing.
Just like normal transfers, you know.
Yeah, and they're saying that the bank shouldn't have allowed it.
The bank should have known it was a scam, I think is the gist of it.
I mean, this guy might as well sue his parents for lack of financial education. Like, let's get it at his root. Let's get it at his root. Don't go after the banks. Go after your mum and dad. You know, again, the good we do, the harm we help our clients avoid. Again, all these people that caught up in this scam, I can't remember. I think, okay, here it is. It's 13.8 million was invested by 1,000 people. So each person was 14 grand in. You know, nobody with real money is going to be doing a 14 grand punt. These are all, you know, not affluent individuals. So again, investing in financial illiterates. Anyway, it boils my blood that this guy is going after HSBC.
Well, he's desperate. Anyway. He's looking for anyone at all that could possibly help.
It's gone to FOS as well, Alan. It's gone to FOS.
I mean,
but obviously it's an unregulated investment, so FOS saying it's nothing to do with us. I mean, it could have landed on our laps. Is that right?
Potentially.
Anyway.
Do you know if you ever try to send money, if you just, I bank with NatWest.
Even if you try and send money to yourself, Alan, these days, they ask you 49 questions.
Exactly.
You've got to fill in,
I just
14
100
different codes.
quid to somebody. It's like, do you know this person? Is it a friend? And you say it's a friend. You say, do you know? And you do have to ask. There's a lot of barriers to encourage people to think twice before they send money.
And then at the end they go, "Are you sure?"
Yeah, I know.
Yes, I am sure.
Sometimes I've said to someone, "No, I've sent you the 100 quid. I've sent you the 50 quid."
Yeah.
They said, "No, you haven't." I said, "Yes, I have."
Yeah.
It's because I didn't hit the 9th.
Yeah.
Yes,
Exactly.
I was like, no, I definitely. They're like, Andy, no, I'm not letting
that
your
old
kids go
trick.
into.
That old trick. I see.
I'm like, no, I definitely paid you. I definitely paid you yesterday, and it's like, no, you didn't scroll up 44 pages to click the final agree. Anyway, back to you, Nick.
Okay, good stuff. I've got to be careful how I phrase this. My article. So there's a company called Evelyn Partners. IFA firm with their own discretionary fund management permissions, I believe, formerly Tilney, Smith and Williamson, I think. And I don't know what you Trappists and the Trap Pack think is a fair ongoing charge. Value is determined by the purchaser of a service, not the provider. But I think 1.6% per annum is about the top. 1.7 is I think that's on the outer edges.
I think 2 could be said as fair, Nick. 2 could be said as fair. It's very expensive to run, scalable, profitable financial advice companies. But
it is if you've got teams doing surveys for your staff and stuff, and maybe what other professions would call redundant people. Anyway, so Evelyn and Partners, I've got access to a valuation from them, from an ISA valuation. I don't know the client's name, but I know the amount in the ISA, £336,000. The valuation was from January last year, January 2023. The client is invested in something called CIMS cautious portfolio, which will mean should be renamed the run out of money before you run out of life portfolio.
That's the real travesty. The asset allocation, not the fees. That will have a bigger impact than the fees.
It's a combination.
I get that.
Yeah. So this Evelyn ISA wrapper has 4 different charges. One is called product ongoing costs, and these are all annual charges. Product ongoing costs. Now you think that would encompass everything, but no, that's got its own line. That's 1.53%. Then you've got product transaction costs, which is 0.27%. I guess that's things like buying disbursements that the fund manager has for getting information on companies and so forth. You've got the platform fee, which is 0.36%. It's not brilliant. It's not bad. It's slightly average, let's say. And then you've got a service fee, which I guess is 0.68%, which I presume that's for whatever ongoing service you get from this company. And it adds up 2.84%. My understanding is as well that dealing fees are still not included in these figures. And I think this is an active portfolio, and active will mean there's activity going on. I imagine the portfolio will have a high level of turnover. And if that's the case, that can add 80 to 100 bips onto the fees that aren't still not, I don't believe, put out into the public domain. So we're looking at, I think, a portfolio here that's costing north of 3% per annum. It's in a cautious portfolio. Now, I think an inflation rate that we're going to experience over our lifetimes is going to be around 4 to 5%. Forget the government target. That's CPI is based on things that don't go up in value. We don't all shop at Primark. We don't always get Lidl. So you're looking at a portfolio that's got to earn over 3% just to stand still each year, and to keep pace in terms of purchasing power. It's got to earn 7 to 8% a year. And this is a cautious portfolio. We know what that means. That means it's 100%. Must be near 100% in bonds. I just think this is what we're still up against. To me, that's I don't know how you can justify this. So I thought I'd just see what service you get for this north of 3%.
Fully legal, fully compliant, Nick. Fully legal, fully compliant.
Definitely, my friend, because the services you get for paying 3% plus a year include access to and support from our back office teams. Oh, well, I'm definitely up for that. Sign me up. And ongoing suitability reviews to provide a recap of previous advice and confirm the suitability of your tax wrappers and investments, typically every 12 months. Okay, so I'm paying you so you can tick a compliance box that you have to do. That's a value add to me. Is that okay? Like it? But they will support you with additional contributions and withdrawals based around your overall plan, as well as the tax wrappers. Oh, so you'll do top-ups for me to my existing ISA each year, and that's what I'm paying you north of 3% a year for. There's very little mention of planning in any of this, either in the ongoing service or the initial service. In fact, the initial plan part of their website said it was more about products. We will help make sure we'll organise your products to get them in line with your plan. It's the only time they mention the plans when they're getting the products aligned with the plan. I don't know. I've got to be careful what I say. That just seems extremely punchy. And here we are worrying sometimes about moving clients to a platform that might be 5 bips more expensive than something else. Trappists, make of this what you will, but there's a whole sea of mess out there, and we are just trying to swim our way out of it slowly. Any thoughts?
Just briefly on that, if I may. So if that is predominantly in fixed interest securities, which you've got to imagine it is, described as a cautious portfolio, it's going to be 80% bonds of some description. So ignoring this for a second, what's the long-term expected real rate of return from a predominantly bond portfolio? I mean, it's 2%. Maybe before
real
costs,
rate?
Just a bond portfolio.
1-2%, maybe?
1 to 2%. That's just a reasonable assumption, long-term.
Yeah, most.
Capital market assumptions before costs. You knock off 2%, 3% on this, the client is literally going backwards, is becoming materially less wealthy over time. So this is we talked about this before many times. This is just a silent transfer of wealth from the retail public to some investment managers, portfolio, wherever they call themselves. And but as you say, Andy, it's legal, it's fully disclosed, it's all there. It's a real issue for the industry. It's compliant because they've told them how much they're paying, but the client is actually not, even if they get financial planning, they're actually worse off as a result. Their assets are dissolving in front of their eyes, and particularly over the long term. That's the first thing. And the other thing I'm just going to throw into the mix here is all these comparisons of fees and costs and charges is fair enough. And there is this kind of, we all know there's a gut feel around what the total costs are. If you say 1.6, Nick, Andy, you might say 2, whatever. In general terms, it's heading down. It is going lower. The biggest challenge, though, is comparing like with like, because 1.6 for a full fat financial plan, comprehensive, tax planning, real proper cash flow based financial planning, always on call, all those things, bringing ideas, suggestions, recommendations, all that on a proactive basis, versus 1.4% a year of exactly that. We'll send you out a statement once a year or whatever. And this is the thing we must always remember, is we've got to compare, all right, the fees are the fees, but what is the actual service experience? What is being delivered? And we'll probably come on to that in a second on the last, or one of the last topical tidbits. But that's the key thing, to make sure we're comparing apples with apples.
Yeah, it's a fair point, Alan, and I get it. The thing that drives me mad about some of these discretionary fund managers is what does that particular client think they're paying? So I promise you, the number that's stuck in the client's head is 0.68%, because that's what they said, that's our service fee, right? So this has happened to me a good few times in the last year or so, where clients who are with some of the bigger houses saying, oh, right, so the Meta's all-in fee will be 1.35%, but sure, I'm only paying 0.75 where I am at the moment. And you're like, you're not. But it sounds, again, we have to go and demonstrate and prove, and sometimes you're kind of losing when you're explaining. So that's the other thing that really, really, really does bug me. The clients do not know that they are paying those level of fees, in my experience.
And they also don't want to feel silly that they've been duped a bit.
True,
and
true,
it's a bit
very
like
true.
The IKEA fallacy, where they've sort of built it, they've sort of committed to it, they've told their partner that this is a safe place for a life savings. Again, moving away is sometimes a lot more high friction.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Well done for bringing it up, Nick. It's important.
Yeah. I've got to tread carefully as well, but thank you, guys. Right, so we're at 44 minutes, guys. So, Wodge, central bank.
Yeah, just a very quick one. I thought this one was interesting. So the central bank have come out and kind of given a little slap on the wrist for investment firms and fund managers, saying that some of the advertising, some of the marketing should be falling under advertising rules, where you have to say this is an advert. And they were kind of saying that if you're writing loads of thought leadership things, that's kind of inverted advertising. So it's just interesting. It's kind of, there are gray areas there, but look, any kind of stuff that the central bank can come out and bare their teeth a little bit more, I think is a good thing. So nothing more to say on that, but it seems like they are actually putting into place our bit of action, which is good.
Your half-century chronicles are going to be regulated advertising under the new rules?
Well, maybe not. But we do write a lot of blogs about, generally speaking, around
I get
stuff.
it.
And
as you know, I create a lot of content in thought leadership, non-mentioning of products, general lifestyle, stuff. And if that gets all caught up.
You're kind of thinking, and we definitely, when I'm shouting and roaring about it all the time, we definitely can't go the wrong side of the road on that one. So, it's just food for thought. But look, if they're writing Dear CEO letters on this stuff, then that is good. That is good. We need more regulation. We need to smarten ourselves up here.
Hockey dokie. Thank you. Storyteller review of Consolidators.
This is the thing. Yeah, well, this is the Dear CEO thing, just continued. This is just highlighting. It's been all over the
trade. This again is massive.
The trade press.
This is the recurring theme, Alan. This is huge.
Yeah.
I've had a few off-the-record conversations with a few influential people in the last week. There's a lot of, as I say, reports out in the press. So the brief origin story is the FCA, our regulator, sent out what is called a Dear CEO letter to the top 20 by scale, size, assets, revenue, whatever, firms in the UK. So you could imagine who those companies were. Very well known that St James's Place, I think, they are the largest, and they were the first to receive this Dear CEO letter, whereupon they had to take significant action to mitigate against future claims, etc. Wrote off best part of £500 million. Share price absolutely collapsed. It's recovered somewhat since then. But there's another 19 to go after that. And so what I've heard is that of these 20 Dear CEO letters gone out, so far 16 of them have now got Section 166 orders in place, which this is the process that the FCA asks or demands that a company does to effectively appoint somebody like Deloitte or KPMG or someone, and they come up and they come into your company, lift up the floorboards and just look at every single operation, every part of your business, every aspect of it. There was a
absolute shambles.
Yeah, there was a report in, I think it was Citywire a few days ago, where they actually, Andy, you shared this, I think, with us, but it broke down the contents of the information that the FCA, so obviously this is in the public domain, the FCA have asked, so they've said, put it in an Excel spreadsheet, and the level of granularity and detail that is now being required. Obviously, the regulator will start with the biggest firms and work their way down. But I think one of the biggest issues is, and what I've heard from some of these people at these large organizations, is possibly that not much service was being delivered in return for the fee that was being received. But even in the cases where things were being delivered, there's little or no records kept, which is to me, it just blows my mind.
It's
even
mad, isn't it?
A little firm like us, I could document anything going back a number of years, even, an exchange of emails. Or if a client wasn't seen for whatever reason, it's very well documented. And to have some of these large organizations saying, look, we think these reviews were carried out, but we can't prove it. And with all these external consultants going in, I think we're going to go through the next 2 years a really, really tough time for the industry, for the sector. I'm not sort of, you're laughing at this in any way. I think it's bad for the whole, the industry in general.
Yeah.
When this is just kind of new information breaking within our industry. So the trade press, money marketing, financial advisor, new model advisor are quoting it. This is just red meat to the nationals, the Paul, what's his name, Paul Lewis, and a bunch of people like that who just say, look, have you been paying back to your point earlier, Carl, most people don't even know that they're paying for it. And all these instances, well, I haven't seen my advisor for 5 years, 6 years, whatever it might be. So it's a little bit like a guy I was speaking to this morning was saying, this is a bit like the forest fires. They come in, they're very, very damaging. And sometimes forest fires are created intentionally to clear out all the dead wood, all the soil, things that aren't growing, and then the other side of that, there's fresh green shoots come out, from the ashes and the remains of this devastating fire. And I think we're at the beginning of an intentional forest fire across our entire sector. So kind of buckle up. It's going to be a difficult time for a lot of people in the industry for the next 2 to 3 years.
I agree.
And all we've got to do is just keep on, telling the truth, doing our very best, and hope that we can avoid any of the fallout. What are your thoughts, guys?
Even the good firms are petrified. Probably the bad firms are just probably not bothered. Who knows? But just following on from the point you mentioned that Citywire focused on, I mean, the FCA are focusing on many parts of this, and obviously it's wrapped up in the whole consumer duty regulation. But there's 3 points that they're really keen on all firms to do. I'll read out each point and we'll loosely discuss them. So the first point they're really keen on is whether the client was assessed for their attitude to risk, and if so, when was it assessed and evidence of it. We've already discussed that the whole attitude to risk and investing profiling currently is broken. So they want us to double down on this broken system. It's probably going to lead to worse client outcomes in terms of bad asset allocation. That's my opinion. Next up, whether the client was assessed for capacity for loss, and if so, when this was assessed and evidence of it. We still don't know exactly what they mean by this capacity for loss, but why would it be capacity for a permanent loss? Losses are temporary. Advances are temporary. The market fluctuates over time. So again, they're asking us to do something else, which is intellectually bankrupt again. The final point I'm massively keen on, any updates to the client's personal circumstances and financial objectives, goals, alongside evidence and the dates these changes were made. Basically, an updated lifestyle financial master plan or financial life plan. That's absolutely paramount. The 2 previous points that they mentioned, I'm not in agreement with, but this is why we're in a bind between ticking the massive regulator and compliance box that means we're still in business and our livelihoods are not, in jeopardy, and doing the right things for the client. So every decent financial advisor is in a massive bind between doing the right things for the clients that they look after and ticking the regulatory box. So, very interesting times.
Yeah, nailed it. Well, yeah. I think we all have similar views around attitude to risk and capacity for loss. And I'll leave it at that. There is one final point, Storyteller, on the docket, on the agenda. Have you covered it? Was that linked with it?
What about the consolidators specifically? Is that
and the following one is that. What firms is asking in ongoing advice review? That was the second.
Well, no,
link.
that was it. It was just breaking down the specific details. It looked like a comprehensive Excel spreadsheet that you're going to have to fill in. And imagine some of these companies have got literally tens of thousands of clients, and you're going to have to. I mean, it's just a beyond belief sort of level of data, admin, etc. Particularly if you haven't really had robust systems. And the other thing that kind of it seems to be a different thing, but it's just closely related, is that the FCA has instructed a review of what they call consolidators. So all the firms that were hoovering up for the last 10 years, the smaller IFA practices, and we've all got our views on this. A lot of them, and there's lots of evidence about this, have been, a lot of these clients. So say you sold your business, Nick, or someone else, or I did, or anyone else did in the past, you sold out to a consolidator, and then part of your deal, and the reason that you got paid millions of pounds, is you agreed to move your client's investment assets into the in-house, discretionary management, service of of choice. And if you think about the maths, how it all works out, no wonder they can afford to pay quite large sums, because they're taking, as you've just described a moment or two ago, if you're taking 3% a year, or taking a large slice of that 3% internally, then it all adds up. So the regulator have sort of somewhat belatedly got wise to all this and said, hang on a minute, is this truly in the investor and the client's interests? The advisor sells up, the assets are then put across to something which arguably, and again, we don't know, but arguably they could be worse off in terms of costs, performance, and everything else. So there's a big review now about to be undertaken on the whole consolidation market, which, as we know, has been, billions and billions of pounds over the last 10 years has been consolidated from smaller firms into the large players. So there's a lot going on in our space right now.
Yep. Well said. Okay, we've got one final point to get through on the docket. This is the many people think it's the biggest conference that we're involved in. So, Carl, the Limerick Chamber of Commerce annual event is happening. Is that no? Oh, Oh,
Let's bring the mood up. 2 weeks from today, we have got Humans Under Management London, which is Europe's biggest financial planning conference. Yes, we got a great lineup of practicing financial advisors and experts. We sold it out 3 months before we are kicking off. And if you've got a ticket, thank you so much for coming. If you didn't get a ticket, be a bit more proactive next year. I am actively looking for a larger venue, and I've got a venue to see actually in a couple of weeks' time that I'm hoping is going to be perfect. So next year we're hopefully going for 450. This year we are close to 350. So yeah, just keeping building the event. That's it. Back to you, Nick, to kick off the meat and potatoes.
Thanks, Ultra. Thank you. Okay, 55 minutes in. Okay, so meat and potatoes for this one. We have touched on this in the past, but I think it's worth going back to this because we underestimate, or rather, we ignore our health at our own peril. Especially if any advisor, whether you're employed or you own your own business, you're carrying the weight of, I don't know, whatever it is, 80 to 120 families. Hopes and aspirations on your shoulders all of the time. Even when you think you're not, your subconscious mind will be wearing stuff away, and it is a burden. And we need to make sure our brains are sharp. We need to make sure that our bodies are sharp. Especially those of us that like to imbibe the odd glass of warm sherry, perhaps sometimes that unnecessary extra glass of warm sherry. How do the Trap Pack keep themselves fit in both mind and body? Well, relatively fit. That is the subject for this meat and potatoes.
How do we burn the candle at both ends? Is that what you're trying to say?
That is exactly what I'm saying, and I like the size of your wick, Andy. I've got to say it. Okay, so we're going to start off with, I think Storyteller's going to lead off with this.
Look, I mean, embarking on this conversation with you jokers and hoping that some of you keep a straight face when we talk about health and fitness is it's an endeavor, but it's one worth trying. So, yeah, we thought we'd bring this up. I introduced that in an early episode, the concept of becoming a corporate athlete. What a statement that is! Because you have you have to be somewhat fit. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. At varying times in my career, the job has been really stressful, and is either something going on internally, externally, a client issue, and it does kind of keep you awake at night. These things. So, being of healthy, sound mind and body, I think it's just really, really important. And so, four of us, obviously, we meet socially, etc. We do partake in the odd glass of sherry and whatever else is lying around. So we thought we'd just sort of chat through this, kind of what are the various sort of tools and tactics that we use. So I'm just going to just rattle through a few of the things that I find help me in order to keep in that relatively good shape, mind and body. So the first thing is I've got a personal trainer. So Andrew is a guy who I meet twice a week, and all that is primarily, as I said to him once, and there are some similarities, honestly, and I'm going to shoehorn in financial planning here, because I said to him once, he didn't love it. I said, I pay you to count to 10, don't you? Because I lift the weight. He goes 1, 2, does the repetition. That's the main, but the main thing I pay him for, frankly, is accountability. Because on those cold, early, raining mornings, and I know that I've got this like 6-foot-tall South African skinhead standing, in the gym, across, waiting for me to arrive. I can't just, switch off the alarm and roll over and go back to sleep. So I've got a personal trainer, and that gives me a framework for making sure I show up and do some exercise of some sort. And as I say, in financial planning, we play the role of accountability coaches quite often. The other thing I try to do, and I'm really interested when you guys start, because you guys are far better walkers than me. Say that carefully. Walkers. Better walk at walking. I know Nick is just this crazy number of steps that he puts in, and Carl as well. So I aim to do 7,500 steps every day. I mean, that which is lower than the kind of ambitious 10,000 steps. I find it just, I'm quite a fast walker, but I used to walk to my office and or there or back. And even though that is about 4 miles, so it was still only about 7,000 steps, and it would take me an hour to do that. So doing 10,000 steps feels to me that's 2 hours a day, which is tricky for me at the moment. So I aim to get an hour of movement, which is walking, as part of my plan. The other thing, and this is probably the biggest impact for me, because as they say, fitness and health is created in the kitchen, not the gym necessarily. So what I consume, I'm quite careful now, getting more careful. I've been a big proponent of the idea of intermittent fasting. So, and I've just dissolved that down to, I have this concept of OMAD, O-M-A-D, which is 1 meal a day. So I generally eat 1 meal a day. I use a service called Green Chef. So they deliver to me these sort of like boxes, but you cook them yourself, raw ingredients. So, single ingredient foods, whether that's a chicken or whatever, but with vegetables. And within that, I avoid or minimize exposure to carbs. And carbs are full of sugar, as we all know. So my diet is kept relatively healthy by eating 1 meal a day and making sure it's predominantly low carb, low sugar. And I have on occasions in the past, I've done 48-hour fasts. I want to do a 72-hour fast quite soon. And it's a really interesting concept, this idea of fasting. It sounds impossible, but it's weird how the body has this ability. We're all storing loads and loads of fat on us, and you get a certain level of an energy boost after sort of having eaten anything for 24 hours, and you can comfortably go again. So look, that's my starter for 10 in terms of just basic program to try to keep relatively sane. Not the fittest guy in the world by any means, but it could be a lot worse. Who wants to go next?
Andy, you go next. You've got 5 pints and 4. What's that?
Okay, so what do I do? Bit of an in-joke there, Nick. You can hear it. You can hear that story at Trap Live.
Oh yeah.
Still working on it. Still working on it now. So what do I do? I like to keep fit, both body and mind. The main thing I do is running. I suppose I've been running for 20 years. During
sirens.
the pandemic. Sorry?
Sirens.
Sirens, thank you.
Running from sirens.
Been running most of my adult life, been going to the gym most of my adult life. I get up most days and do some form of physical exercise. At the moment, I'm probably only running about 2 or 3 times a week. Whenever I'm away, which is quite frequently, I get up and run around a random city, so that's all good. I do quite a lot of weight training with mainly dumbbells at home, so YouTube workouts and stuff. But recently I've got this horrible condition called weightlifter's elbow. It's like tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, gardener's elbow. Absolute fucking killer. That's mainly most of the stuff that I've done. When I was in my 20s, I did quite a lot of kickboxing and boxing, so I got into quite good shape doing that. I worked with a PT for about 5 or 6 years. I stopped that when COVID kicked off, but I can understand, the benefits of it, and I'll work with a coach again in the future. Food-wise, I use a food service called Pot O Gold, which deliver small microwavable meals, perfect for sort of busy people. I don't really know what else to say, really. I suppose I dabble in a little bit of tech here, there, and everywhere.
Why do you do it,
Sleeping's the most
Why do you do it?
Why do I do what?
Why do you have this fitness regime?
What?
Why do you have this fitness regime?
I just want to keep fit. I intentionally buy quite tight-fitting clothes, so I don't put on any weight. I did hear Jimmy Carr once say in one of his talks that he's got a low-level eating disorder. And it just hit me between the eyes. It's exactly what I've got, but I'll move on from that. So I have very small portions. I'm out quite a bit. And again, it's balancing both things, isn't it? I like a drink as such, but then I need to sort of offset that with working out the next morning. Sleep's key. We're going to talk about sleep, I suppose. Obviously, if you've had a couple of drinks, sleep's all over the shop. That's basically what happens with me. If I don't have a drink, then obviously sleep is a lot better. So I track my sleep, as it were, mainly through my iWatch. And here's the controversial thing. In recent times, I have started to mouth tape when I go to bed.
Here we go.
And there's a lot.
And does she object?
There's a lot of benefits to mouth taping. Does she object? Here are the benefits. Your sleep quality improves. Your enhanced oxygenation. Reduce risk of sleep apnea. You don't snore. So your other half, your partner, doesn't want to kill you and kick you out. And it also improves your jawline. And I've been doing it for about a month now. It's all the rage on the interweb. Obviously, you boys have not got the memo. But like all things, I bring them up, you take the piss, and you do them in 3 months' time or 6 months' time. So I'm awaiting to hear your mouth taping stories. Right, over to you.
What is that? What
Your
is that,
intensive
Andy? I need
weight
to know.
training regime.
I need to know, you literally
What's
put tape across your mouth when you go to bed?
There's many different types of mouth. It's like a small plaster that you just put over your mouth, so it just enhances
And you
nasal
can't breathe
breathing
out your
rather than
mouth?
mouth breathing. No, breathing out your mouth's terrible while sleeping. Hence, you tape your mouth, but you're naturally inclined to breathe out your mouth versus your nose.
I'm at it 50 years. It's going okay.
This is not me coming out with some new wacky idea. All the people you follow online that are, health gurus,
Don't get
live
defensive.
by this. I'm not getting defensive. I've only been doing it. I've been aware of it for 3 or 4 years, and I've been
It's
like
not
you.
getting defensive, Nick, okay?
Okay. And I was like, no, that's not going to be me. That's not going to be me. That's not going to be me. And then after the 4,000th advert, I was like, right, let me go to Amazon and check out mouth taping. So me, Pierre, and Pete, again, 2 close mates of mine, we're sort of part of this sleep mouth taping gang.
Mouth taping
so we
gang.
share notes. Anyway.
You share notes about your mouth taping experiences.
You've never heard that before, have you, mouth taping gang? Right,
No.
back to you,
No,
Nick.
I've seen some videos and they're quite hardcore. Right,
I don't
well,
want to know about your
Carl,
internet search history.
we'll do Carl first. So we'll go from Andy's small portions to you, Carl. How are you? How's your body?
Yeah. Nice segue there.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest about this, right? So a little bit like somebody saying to me, you need to look at your own half-century chronicles. I'm good sometimes, I'm not so good sometimes, and I'm mostly probably somewhere in between. The walking is the one thing that I am consistently good at because it frees my brain and just helps me, I think, regulate myself is probably a good way of putting it. So I'm like, myself and Nick are always showing off, but Nick is always more than me. But my 1 year watch tells me that I'm averaging 11,170 steps a day. So I do consistently do 10,000 a day. I'm on a streak at the moment and trying to beat my best streak, which was 44 days, which I'm going to do. So that's probably the one that I'm most consistent at, and probably does help me the most. Back in 2018, I met a guy called Joe O'Connor, who was my personal trainer. Joe's actually doing a PhD at the moment. He's a sports scientist, and he was brilliant because he introduced me to the MyZone belt. It's basically a heart rate monitor, and it's kind of gamified. Is that the word I'm looking for? So I have to do 1,300 MEPs. Don't ask me what MEPs means, but the higher your heart rate, the more MEPs you get per exercise and all that kind of stuff. And you go through various levels. So I'm at Hall of Fame because I've done it for 5 whole years in a row, would you believe? Which I know is very hard to believe. And you'll also realize that the 1,300 isn't exactly a massive target.
If they're looking for a poster child for the advert, I'd say hold fire with you, Carl. If you're
Yeah. Thanks for that, Andy. And I'm definitely not going to get defensive. But so Joe became a pal of mine, and sometimes when I'm not doing so good on it all, I will reconnect with Joe, and Joe kind of does a couple of sessions with me, which is really good. I've been totally open that back in 2018 at the Munster High Performance Leadership course, I met Dr. Patrick Ryan, who is a psychologist, and I do regular check-ins with Patrick. And I don't do them, when I say regular, they're probably not that often anymore. But they definitely sitting down and talking to somebody who I trust and who knows my story inside and out definitely does help me. And I suppose a couple of years back, you boys know, I suffered from burnout, right? So it just all came in on top of me, everything at one time. And I took a couple of weeks off work, and I suppose I'm always trying to acknowledge, am I on that path again? Because I've never want to get on that path again. And what I would say is, like, so we're Meadows Ireland at the moment. We're absolutely flying it. It's really, really busy. We've a lot of new staff. The team is growing and all that kind of stuff. So it's all really, really good. And yet sometimes I do feel the pressure. So it's not necessarily the pressure, and this burnout thing doesn't necessarily just happen if things are bad or you're going through a couple of bad moments. It can also happen when it's just so busy that I'm like going, and I know when I feel it because I'm really good at making decisions and just keep going. And what happens is I get a little bit frozen in the decision making when when everything starts to come in on top of me. That's my cue to go and talk to Patrick, go and get Joe, there's a couple of mates of mine that I'll go for a walk with, that kind of stuff. So I would say, look, it's an awful cliche and it's probably out there on social media too much, right? But it is okay not to be okay. It totally is. And I suppose the older I get, the more I don't mind saying it, that sometimes I'm not okay and sometimes I do. And thankfully, those times are much fewer and far between than they used to be. But it is something that I am very, very conscious of. And I do, right now, a lot of this is self-talk, right? Because everything is very, very busy and I do need to get back to a pretty strict regime. And that's what works for me. Talking to somebody and get into a strict regime, get myself back on track and get everything kind of humming again. So, that's kind of what works for me. But like, you're right, Andy, I'm not the poster child. And it's like, I'm not the,
defensive.
No, but I'm just let's be realistic about this. Like, I do a lot of these things a lot of the time, but there are times I don't do pretty much any of them.
Oh yeah. Well, Carl, we're all fooling.
And that doesn't work.
We're all fooling.
Yeah, and that's what doesn't work for me. I need to, sometimes give myself a kick in the backside, or someone else give me a kick in the backside to go and do it. So that's pretty much me.
Yeah, the burnout thing definitely is real. It hit me really badly a few years ago, and I had to just completely cut off for a while. But now I've just got way better at recognizing when it's bubbling. And you just need to take a step back, not do so many things, not juggle so many balls, not launch so many new projects, pass way more things to the team. I've just got way better at recognizing when it's brewing.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Andy. That's exactly it. Like, it's you when you feel it brewing, right? That it's coming. To be able to acknowledge that is a key skill, right?
Yeah, key.
Sometimes we don't
less
want to
time on your
that.
phone, eating well, less drinking, sleeping better. You've just got to cut all the bad and increase all the good.
There's two words, Andy. It's time and space. So when it starts coming in, all right, I now I need time and space. Everyone needs to give me time and space, and that's what works. But you do need to check yourself out of the treadmill that is busy work life, and just take a step back. And everyone will be better for it. You first and foremost, but everyone around you, professionally and personally, will be better if you do take that time and space.
Okay, great stuff. Thanks for sharing that, both of you guys. Good stuff. Okay, so I'll quickly wrap this up. So, as you will know, Trappists, of all four of the Trap Pack, I am the one who works the most in isolation. I have a lifestyle business. Andy is a solo advisor, but he has various brands and he's interacting with people. I don't really have that except when I'm interacting with my clients. So I've got these four walls around me in my home office. I'm at my desk at 6:30 in the morning. I sleep pretty well. I put my head on the pillow and I'm gone, much to TLP's annoyance, because she's not a great sleeper. But I'm down on my desk at 6:30 in the morning. I do 2 to 3 hours prepping for the week, prepping for the day ahead. If I've got client planning meetings, dealing with emails, and then about 9:30, I just get out. And if there's one thing I would say to do, and Carl's alluded to it, it sounds so basic and petty. If you're feeling blue, and I have times when for no reason, there's nothing particularly on the front of my mind, I just feel a bit blue. I don't, we all just go through different biorhythms and different cadences, and we just change sometimes. And I just get yourself out the front door and go for a walk. Just go for a walk. Get yourself off your ass and go for a walk. It doesn't matter if it's a mile or it's 4 miles. You can go with something in your ears, or you can just go and listen to the world, whatever. But get off your ass and go for a walk. And I average about 14,000 steps a day. So today I walk and I play tennis. I'm quite competitive. I like tennis. I like ball sports. So I walk to tennis. I walk back, and by 11:30 this morning, I'd done 12,000 steps, having already worked 3 hours from 6:30 a.m. In terms of, and again, Penny had put me onto this. I'm quite lanky, but I've never had muscle definition, because I've always had people pay people to lift things up for me. Basically, it's just aristocratic genes, whatever you want to label it. But I've always been lanky, no muscle definition. So don't know if you can see these. I've got these little dumbbells. These are 10K dumbbells, which I've got in my office. They're cracking, and because they're in my office and they're small. They're always in sight, and I just get up and do reps on those. And I feel I've done it over the last year or so. I've actually got some muscle definition. It's hard to put muscle definition on once you're north of 50, but I have got some, and I feel so much better in myself for it. I'm never going to be a bodybuilder, but I just feel better. And I think I look better. And this is all linked to you want to be your best for your clients. Right? If you're eating poorly, you're going to feel poorly. You're going to come across poorly. I don't care how you try and cover it up. If you're feeling like a slob, you're going to think like a slob and you're going to come over as a slob. I want to be clean with my thoughts. I want to feel good and vibrant and energized. I don't want to feel guilty. I've just wolfed down 2 double cheeseburgers. So I'm careful about my diet as well. That's the final thing I'll come onto here. And now the culture corner bit, I'll link to a book I read in 2014. We have no idea of the damage that sugar and white flour has done to our diet and corn syrups over the last 60 years. And it's everywhere unless you cook from home, from scratch pretty much. You've got to be so careful. Really watch your diet. Watch what you're eating. If you're feeling blue, get off your ass and go for a walk and just do some resistance, some light weights, whatever. You don't have to have a big bloody home gym or anything. Just get some dumbbells and just do a little workout. The internet will tell you, well, I didn't know anything. I didn't know what a rip curl, what all these different things you can do and different types of things you can do with dumbbells, but it's on there on YouTube. You can get yourself a lovely little program and work through it and keep doing it. You'll feel better. You'll be better set in your mind, which means you'll do a better job for your clients. And that's what we on this planet to do, the best we can for our clients. So that's why I think fitness is important. If you're working on your own, you've got to get out. Otherwise, you're going to be like Jack Nicholson in The Shining. You're going to go cabin fever crazy and end up trying to kill your wife. Which I haven't done yet, by the way, if anyone listening to this. Okay, so that is fair done on this one. Okay, so we're at 76 minutes. Andy, you got a finger raised?
No. Yeah, final points. I mean, you just brushed past it, but YouTube is an absolute treasure trove for fitness, anything related to fitness. It's got loads of stuff for yoga, loads of stuff for calisthenics, loads of stuff for weight workouts. I don't personally listen to any fitness podcasts, but I listen to a lot of podcasts about fitness, if that makes sense. Usually Chris Williamson, Diary of a CEO, that sort of stuff. Does anyone else have any thoughts on podcast
there's
information?
mouth taping for beginners. That's a good one. That's on Spotify.
Smithy, you must have something here.
I've never mouth taped in my life, mate. For those who are watching this on YouTube, Carlos, just in summary, I did a program about 7 years ago, and the guy who was running it was all about healthy mind and body and everything else. And he just started by saying, it was like you like to talk about, Nick, like reverse and begin with the end in mind. He said, think back to a time when were you just on great form? You felt great. You're mentally acute, mentally sharp. What had gone on that day, that week, that month? And it's very clear, they're stating the bleeding obvious, but it's all those things. I was really well rested, had a good quality sleep. I was eating healthily and I was hydrating and I was moving. You don't have to go to the gym 15 times a day, but as you say, Nick, if you step outside, and all those things combined result in this position where you're up for it. Things come at us all the time, good things and not so good things, and just having the mental agility and the frame of mind to just to attack them, to take advantage of them, to sort of sort out issues and challenges and problems. And it's a combination of all those things. I don't think any of us are claiming that we're bloody, God's gift to any of these things, physical exercise or mental health.
No.
But I think we're all making a reasonable effort. And I think anyone listening in or tuning into this is probably doing the same thing. And it's just so important. We work so much in the human to human business, and you've got to show up as the best version of you as a human being.
Okay.
I'll finish with a final quote I heard the other day in relation to drinking and alcohol. Nobody ever wakes up in the morning and said, "Oh, I wish I had a drink last night." Thought it was quite a poignant quote. True. Anyway, over to you, Nick.
I don't know about that.
Okay, right, Christ on a bike. Let's go to Trappist questions, because I can see Posty hauling the bulging sack of Trappist questions up my drive, and she's ringing the front doorbell. The front doorbell isn't working for some reason. Never mind, I can see her in my little strange world. And we are going to open up this sack and pull out the Trappist question. Let's see who this one is from. This is from a chat. Now, this was posted on the 19th of March, so we are getting through the Trappist questions, but here we are in October, so we'll be at 7 months behind. And if you want to pose a question to us, of course, in the so-called show notes, there's a link there. You can just click on that and leave a question, or you can do so via our pinned tweet on X, our pinned X on tweet, whatever you want to call it. Okay, Ashton Ward is the chap's name. He's on Twitter as at Ashton Ward01. He's not an IFA. I believe he runs a recruitment business, executive search, interim management and consulting, not an IFA. Question is, hi, a question for the Trap team, please. Do you advise your clients to invest a proportion of their portfolio themselves on an investment platform? Which investment platforms, if any, do you recommend and why? Which investment platform has the greatest choice of investments and the lowest fees? Thank you so much. Ash, there's about 17 questions in there, but we'll give you a pass on this one. Ultra, you lead off.
I don't know, but I would recommend him running off to either Boring Money or Money to the Masses, and they have done this question to death, compared all the fees, all the portfolio values, how many times you're going to trade. There's way more qualified companies and individuals out there that can answer that question. So Boring Money and Money to the Masses. Okay.
I thought Hargreaves Lansdown might be something you might talk about.
But what about the original question? Which is to do, would you advise, if you're an advisor, would you advise your clients to go off and open up an account on a platform
never.
And choose funds? Well, so, yeah, I mean, the answer to that is no. Why would you? Why would you go and see a doctor or something and say, I'll look after your entire health.
Well, I think he's alluded to
buying a few.
No, but maybe the question kind of alludes to what we've spoken about before about
the
kind of
the
playpen,
account,
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's appropriate, right? If your financial plan tells you that it has answered the question, we are going to be okay, and there is going to be enough, and our legacy is being looked after in terms of the kids, all that kind of stuff. Is it appropriate for someone to carve out 5% or so and do a bit of trading themselves if that's what they want to do?
Absolutely, you crack on.
Go for it. Yeah, I think that's okay.
I think I've only got
the rest of the questions are more kind of UK based, so
I think I've got maybe 2 or 3 clients that have about close to 60 that do that have an account elsewhere that they're pissing around with. So it's a very minimal thing in my world. It might be different with other advisors that work with different types of demographic of a client, but yeah, I've got minimal that are doing that.
We do
legacy stuff. They've already accumulated X shares in Apple and stuff that I'm never going to say, look, don't sell your 100 grand in Apple and shift over here. Then Apple does 4X the next year, and then I'm like, fourfold. Again, we're in a bind. Fourfold the following year. Whatever. Do you know what I mean? Again,
I can't see past Hargreaves Lansdown as a platform. They're not the cheapest, but all the things you want, range of funds, want to buy individual stocks, the information, the calculators, all this stuff.
Efficiency.
They are just the best.
Call them up.
What they do.
They've got a brilliant app.
Yeah, calculators are very good. I mean, if I'm giving a steer to someone, not necessarily written advice, but I have got personally a little bit of pin money on the Vanguard platform because I just wanted to see how it works. I've got 500 quid on there, and that's very obviously you're limited to Vanguard's range. But this comes back to this other question: limited fund range or wide fund range. Well, if you've got one fund that invests in all the great companies of the world, that is your fund range in one fund. You don't need X number of funds, but that's going down a different avenue. The Vanguard site is very slick. It's very quick. It's click, 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 click. You're done.
Yeah.
Bob's your uncle. ISA, GIA, and pension. Perhaps might be for people who are starting or who want to go off on their own. That might be something that will come up in a conversation. Okay, thank you, Ashton. Thank you for your question. Do appreciate that. I think, gents, now we're running into 83 minutes. Someone shoot me. We're going to move on to Culture Corner, and here's hoping that the thing actually works. Wonder why Trappist questions didn't work. Strange. The universe moves in strange ways. Oh, that's working. Okay, I'm going to pause it. Okay, Culture Corner. We're going to start off. I'm not going to tell you who's starting off because they know and they're prepped to go, aren't they?
Smitty.
Thank you. I knew already, Carl, but thank you for the support. I appreciate it. I'll reciprocate.
I'm just being the best boy in the class.
Give him 2 seconds.
Must appreciate it. I want to share a book that I've recently read. The author is now, as of yesterday, a close personal friend because
personal friend
because he
can't I have a
we
dose?
messaged on Twitter on on X. And anyway, it's called The 80-20 Principle, Achieve More with Less, by a gentleman called Richard Koch, Koch. And this is nothing new. You know, the old Pareto principle. I know that, Carl, you mentioned a book before, Dan Sullivan book, which is, I can't remember, it's along the similar lines. I just thought this, every now and again, you need to be really reminded. And he's very practical. He's a sort of serial entrepreneur, Richard is. You know, bought, grew businesses, and he just applied this principle to everything in terms of, you know, there are 20% of your clients that generate 80% of the revenue. There are 20% of your problems created by 80%. And so apply it to every aspect of your life, and some real good practical insights and advice. It's a quick read, and I got a lot out of it. So 80-20 Principle, Richard Koch. Thank you very much.
Great stuff. Thanks, storyteller. Mine is linked to our meat and potatoes around fitness and diet and so forth. And it's a book that came out in 2014, and I read it in 2014, and it influenced me. It's called The Big Fat Surprise by Nina Teicholz. And this is a lady who studied this ongoing question: why have we got raging obesity in the West, and all the related illnesses that go with it, especially diabetes? Which has come in the last sort of 70 years or so, when in the West we've massively changed our diet. We've been told that saturated fats are bad. We've moved away from dairy. We've moved away from eggs. We've moved away from red meat. And instead we've gone to oils, polyunsaturated oils, the rapeseed oil, sunflower oil. We've gone to corn syrup. There's loads more sugar in our diet. We're eating loads more pulses, and yet we're getting fatter and fatter and fatter. And this book it reveals, you know, it looks into the history of all this. I won't go into it now, but it's really interesting. There's a lot of bad advice given to Americans in the early 60s, which is still the case. And the premise is that human beings have lived for hundreds of thousands of years on a diet of fat and meat. And absolutely, that's what our bodies are designed to do. And the modern diet completely buggers about with our insulin levels. So much is dependent on our insulin. The pancreas is like, of all the vital organs, it's so important. And our diets now, we don't know when we're sated. We just keep on eating, and that's why you see all these fat people. The Big Fat Surprise, and it sounds very dry and academic. It's really interesting, really well written, and it'll just open your eyes a bit. There we go. That's my one.
I'm next. Thanks very much for that, Nick. I appreciate it. I'd like to recommend a book called How to Retire by Christine Benz, which Andy actually mentioned on the last episode, and I did download it. It's 20 Lessons for a Happy, Successful and Wealthy Retirement. I'll be totally honest, I'm only halfway through, but I thought it good enough that I sent the link to a client of ours who is about to, or has just actually retired, because there's kind of interviews with people in it, and it goes away from necessarily just the money, right? It's more about having a purposeful retirement, etc. So I'm hoping and expecting that the second half of the book is as good as the first half, and I just did think that good one for clients who are approaching that, because I we often do underestimate that massive transition. You know, we're talking about definitely the money and are we going to be okay and all that kind of stuff. But especially I think business owners whose everything is linked to their self-esteem, almost is linked to their identity or their role as a business owner, or senior execs in these multinationals. So I think it's something that's really, really important. So yeah, I'm halfway through, and I recommend it so far anyway.
Cool.
Okay, my final topical, culture corner. All four of them are loosely financial related, which is interesting. Mine's a podcast, the Economics of Everyday Things podcast, and it's by the Freakonomics family. They're quite short episodes, and they go into sort of a wide-ranging topics, but do check it out. I'm a big fan of Freakonomics, and I like the Economics of Everyday Things. Back to you, Nicholas.
Cool. Right. I think we're done, aren't we? We've done Culture Corner. We're at just under an hour and a half. Oh, good grief. Okay, dear Trappists, I think that's a wrap, isn't it, for this episode? We all happy with that? Please do leave a 6 out of 5 star review on iTunes or whatever app lets you leave a review. Do like and subscribe to us on
Yeah.
our YouTube channel, our burgeoning YouTube channel. We really are near 1,000 subscribers, which is still something I can't quite wrestle with. But that's great. Thank you very much. But until the next time, unless Andy, you want to mumble something under your breath as you normally do at this time, I will say, dear Trappist.
I'm gonna be organising some mouth tape to be sent to Watford for TLP to put over you, so she can sleep in the same bedroom as you, Nick, and not sleep in the other bedroom. So I might have just saved your marriage. Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Okay, that's true. I do still want to have the
put it
odd
on
warm
yourself
sherry.
for the next episode of Trap?
Right, dear Trappists, that's it. We're done. Thank you for your precious time. Take care out there. We will see you all in 2 weeks' time. Adios. Get out of my computer. Go on, go.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.